Essie Cohen. Welcome to Seeing Other People.
I'm so excited to be here.
This is such a long time coming. We've been talking about doing this for over a year.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't even know what to say. I'm so excited. Okay, backing up. Essie and I know each other because she was my makeup artist for my wedding.
Yes.
And we met a year prior when she was the makeup artist at my friend Kristen's wedding and instantly clicked.
Yeah, totally.
And we were like, we have to record a podcast together.
Yeah.
But I was like, let's wait until after my wedding.
Yes.
Like I think at Kristen's wedding, I was like, I'm probably going to like book her.
Yeah.
And then I don't know. I feel like we know each other so much better now.
Yeah, for sure.
And there's so much to talk about.
So much more.
So much more. Okay, so before we begin, can you tell everyone a little bit about yourself, where you're at in life, and
for sure.
anything else you want to share?
Absolutely. So I just turned 40. And
You didn't.
Yeah, I did.
So crazy. I don't believe you.
No, it does. But I'm going to say it's all about the skincare.
Yeah. Yep.
And staying out of the sun. So I got married. Let's see. It'll be in 2021. So I was a COVID bride. I'm a makeup artist by trade, and I do lots of weddings and events. And I literally was in the trenches with all my brides that year of like their entire vision, like crashing and burning. And I was in it with them. And so my husband and I had met online and we got engaged after a year. It was like a very quick, like we just knew and we were ready to do it. And we were at that point in our life where we knew who we were, what we wanted. And then COVID happened. So we postponed our wedding for a full year. We got married 2021. We had our son a year later. So he is going to be 2 in August. And
August what?
August 31st.
Okay. We're a few days apart. I'm the 16th.
Yep. Yeah. Some of my favorite people are August babies. And and now I'm like almost 3 years in married life and, surviving and thriving.
I love that you said like you were deep in the trenches with the brides because you were also, when you were single, deep in the trenches with the Seeing Other People listeners. And
for sure, like so deep in the trenches.
Yes. There is actually a blog about it. We're going to get into some of the stories, but I remember that was one of the first things you said to me when you found out what I do. You were like, I have so many dating stories. Yes. And I was like, I need to hear all
and
of
some
them.
weren't even ones I actually ended up meeting, just like people that like strung me along, wasted my time. I mean, it was just like, it was so horribly depressing that I couldn't stop but laugh at it because I had to make it funny because I mean otherwise what do you say to some of these things?
And I love that mindset because there are a few ways you can look at it. You can be like, wow, this sucks. Everything is horrible.
For sure.
I'm giving up hope. I'm clearly like never going to find someone. Or you can be like, this is so ridiculous. I have no choice but to laugh it off.
Yeah, for sure.
And to recognize that it doesn't mean anything's wrong with you. And it happens, unfortunately, to everyone.
Yeah. And literally it took my mom saying to me, and it was the weekend before, and I'll never forget this conversation that I met my husband. I was like, I'd been on the like multiple sites. I was just like so over it. I was like tired of people wasting my time, like tired of people that didn't know what they wanted or where they were at in life. And I was just like, I'm so there. And if I don't find someone that's there, like, I don't even want to bother with you. Like, I don't want to waste my time on well, maybe one day he'll get like, no, I'm past that stage of life. And my mom had said to me, she goes, Essie, it's a numbers game. You got to beat the odds. And so I went on like 4 dates that weekend. I was like, I'm doing a happy hour. I'm doing a coffee date. I'm doing a brunch. I'm doing dinner and just drinks. And by that Sunday, I was like, oh my God, this is horrible. And I had not realized I had a message from my now husband online, and he had messaged me, and I like went off the app for the afternoon, and I was just like, I'm not looking at anything. So Monday morning I checked it, and I was like, okay, he seems normal in his photo. His message was like very nonchalant. We still have the message today. And I was like, okay. And then we were texting and talking, which normally I hate having like full conversations. Now it's gotten a little different with people, on a text. I was like, can we talk and hear your voice? Because one time I got scarred by like listening to a guy's voice, and I was like, oh my God, I would never be able to hear this forever. I would die.
This is weird. I had a few situations like that, and I don't know why. Because I've never been particularly attracted to a certain voice.
No, same.
But then there have been voices, and some people like it's not even like it was an awful voice. It's like sometimes there were guys who their voices were way too deep for me.
Yeah.
Versus other people love a deep voice. And it's just like, I can't do it.
And I think like it's funny when you like, until you start meeting certain like things that you in people that you didn't realize were things that were going to bother you. And then all of a sudden like it happens. Like at first I was like, oh, I don't care about guys that are like my height or shorter. And then I was like, oh, yes, I do. Mm-hmm. Actually, that's a non-negotiable for me. And then there were like, you know, the voice thing, you know, and then certain other stuff where like a guy that, you know, is ambitious and okay, but like if they're like leaning towards the job of their dreams. And then I was kind of like, no, like you're in your mid-30s, you should be there. Like, what are you doing? Like if you're still figuring it out and living with your parents, no, that's a non-negotiable for me too. You know, so I definitely, as I started dating, like realized, no, there were certain things that I was like, no, because even it's not about being closed-minded. And I think like sometimes with women, we like are taught that those are standards are like, we have high standards and we're being demanding or things like that. And I'm like, no, but it's not about like checking it off the list. It's the meaning behind it. You know, like if you're still living at home, then you're not being ambitious to like start your own life. Why is that? Mm-hmm. You know, what's holding you back? That's really, it's like the meaning behind the action. It's not so much about checking it off a list or I have to have this or I have to have that. But those are personality traits that I will not eventually get along with because I know myself. Like I'm very ambitious. I'm a hard worker. I'm very independent. I moved out at 18. So like, how am I going to relate to somebody that hasn't ever paid their own rent or like understood what that stuff is like? I'm not going to. Mm-hmm. And that's just a fact. And that's just about an experience in life and who we are as people. And I think that sometimes, especially with women, gets mistaken for, oh, you're being high maintenance. You have high standards. Yeah. You know, you're being really demanding. Like no one's perfect. Like I'm not asking for perfection. I'm asking for some basics here.
Right. And I'm sure if you had met somebody at the time who was living at home and you had a discussion with them and found out it's because they're helping to take care of their parent who's sick.
For sure.
Like, wow, that's really wonderful of you to do that.
That's a grown-up thing. That's a grown-up reason. Right. Exactly. But it's like the why behind that stuff that I think like we get so caught up in like, you know, like a thing and it's like not really a sentence, it's really what's behind that sentence. And I think, you know, we need to like focus on those things and realize it's okay to have certain standards of where you're at in life and want someone that's in that same place because relationships are about growing. So if you're not growing together, it's not going to work. And I see it like with my job, with life. You know, I have a brother and sister that are 10 and 11 years older than me. So, you know, they kind of all had a head start. They're friends. And so a lot of their marriages and relationships I've like been watching for 10 years before I kind of like met my husband and everything and seeing the evolution of being married for that long and what happens and what goes on and things I want to emulate, things I don't, things that I saw like help them and, you know, and help them grow together because at the end of the day, life's hard and it's a long time, you know, like 60 years with someone's a long time.
And that's the goal.
Right. And that's the goal. And you have to be able to grow together in order to stay together. You have to evolve together because if you're evolving either differently or apart, then it changes things and it changes the dynamic of your relationship.
Yeah. And I think that's where it's so important to remember everything you just said because we're so quick to be like, well, they have potential.
Right.
Or
right.
I know
the potential
what they could be and I can help them get there. That's not your job.
Right. Yeah.
That is literally not your job.
I thought it was mine for like 15 years.
For so long.
I really thought that was like my full-time job is to like get everyone to be the launch pad for everybody.
Same. And it is... First of all, it's never going to work out.
No.
It's never going to work out. And that's not to say there's something wrong with that person.
No.
You're just not in the same place.
Right.
You're not prioritizing the same things.
Right.
And to create a healthy, lasting, strong relationship, it's just not going to happen.
Right. No, it's true. And I think like another piece of advice my mom like had said to me was, you know, relationships are like books, you know, some are short stories, some are essays, some are, you know, great books, some are beach reads, and some are like the great novel, you know, and eventually the goal is to find the great novel, but it's okay to be like, this was my, you know, this was great for me right then. Like I never used to get upset with the exception of probably one relationship that was a very long-term relationship when things ended because I was like, it's done. It's run its course. And I'm okay with that because we're not right for each other anymore, and this is not meant to be. So what am I going to be upset about? Why am I going to get upset about something that is just leading me to the next thing, which is going to eventually lead me to what I want, you know? So I never like was devastated by a breakup, because breakups are just, you know, the world's way of saying, okay, this is not it. And that's all right. And it's time to move on. This chapter's closing, and that's totally fine. We're going to start a new story. And I always would look at it that way, because it was just, you know, like better to say it that way.
You make it sound so simple. I'm like, oh my God, I wish I could have had this mindset.
Yeah, it took me a long time to get there, and definitely lots of conversations and lots of probably therapy too, you know, and knowing who I am and myself and being okay with that, and you know, and really wanting for myself the, you know, what I deserved. And I think that's the thing too. Like, if I know this is not good enough for me long term, like, why am I going to be upset about it? You know, it's like, you know, we get upset about jobs and things. Like, if it didn't work out because it wasn't right for you, like, think of like your perfect example, you. I mean, look at what you've built, and had all this other stuff not blown up, it wouldn't have led to this.
Right.
But this is where you were meant to be, you know?
I think that job example is so on point, because I think we can all point to a specific job or a few jobs that we were dying to get.
Yes.
We didn't even work at these jobs.
No.
We were like, I will be nothing if I don't get this job. This interview was the most important thing. Like, this is the job. And then we didn't get it. And thank God we didn't get it. Not only did we survive, but we found something even more right. And it made so much sense in hindsight why we didn't get that job.
For sure. And you always have to look back at those things too and reflect. And I think that's a big thing, is like, we live in a very like rushed society of like instant gratification, instant this, instant that. And, you know, relationships take time to evolve, but also, you know, things that are supposed to work out take time too. And it's okay. You know, I meet so many girls that in my line of work that they'll be like, oh my God, like, I feel so old getting married now. And I'm like, you're 30, you're fine. You know, like, it's okay. Like, what is the point? Like, let's take the emotion out of it. Like, what would be the point of going in a relationship at 30 to be together? Maybe you get married, maybe you don't, wasting 5 years, you know it's not right, and then end up starting all over again. And then you end up at 38 anyway, getting in the relationship you were meant to and getting married. So what was the difference if you had just waited, as opposed to rushing it because of this number in our mind, you know, that we have? And you know, and it's all changed. Like, I was definitely one of the last of my friends to get married, and it was definitely hard. I'm not going to lie. You know, I definitely struggled sometimes going to so many people's weddings and showers and engagement parties, and now babies are being born. Like, all my friends had like 1, 2, 3 kids by the time I got married. But I ended up, you know, one of my best friends, you know, from when I was 6 years old that I grew up with, you know, she was like, I kind of love that you're getting married at this age, because you're so like happy and confident and like in the moment. Like, you're not thinking about how thin you are, how this or how that. Like, you're not focusing on all the silly stuff, because like, you're just in such a good place with yourself, that she's like, it's so different. Because she got married, I think, at like 28, you know, and it was her college sweetheart, who I love. He's like my favorite husband of all my friends. Like, he's my buddy too. And, you know, they were totally meant to be. They signed our ketubah at our wedding. And, you know, but it was just, it's a different energy when you're like okay with where you're at, and you're happy, and you're like, this is what I wanted, and I'm just so happy to be here, and I'm grateful. You know, like, that was something I remember on your wedding day. Like, every piece of it was about you two, and it was about like really experiencing every second of this beautiful like day together with your friends and family, making it about yourself. Like, you did things on your terms, you know, much to people's dismay. You didn't have a whole huge bridal party, which I think a lot of people expected you to have.
Definitely.
And I think, you know, some people are disappointed, but I also, like, from being with you all day, like, you were really in your element of feeling calm and collected. You were enjoying the whole process, and you were present. You had great time with your mom and, you know, and you know, family, and it was nice, you know, and that was right for you.
Exactly. And I flip-flopped back and forth for over a year about it.
Yeah.
And I was thinking on that day, like, if there was one more person here, I would lose my mind.
Totally. And now, if you had maybe done that 5, 6, 7 years ago, you may have made a different decision because of perception. But you were such in a different place of being like, no, this is what I want. And guess what? I'm going to do what I want and what I need for me to have the best day ever. Because guess what? That's what it's about.
100%.
And I think that not everyone can say that, you know, because they're not in that headspace. And I think that's when you know it's the right time. That's when you know it's the right choice for you. It's the right person, is when you can be authentically yourselves that day. I think that's a huge sign.
I mean, I think back to so many relationships and situationships that I was in where I was so sure like this is the person.
Yeah.
But my every day and every night was filled with anxiety.
Yes.
About them, about me with them, about if I say this thing, if I do this thing, if I ask this thing, is it going to blow everything up?
Right.
And throughout the whole wedding planning process, I kept thinking to myself, like, I cannot imagine going through this not being 1010% sure that this was right.
And you can see too, like through all like your stories and just conversations we've had, like he was so in sync with you and letting you enjoy every piece of this, every moment, every, you know, arc and ebb and flow. I think also you had a really supportive family, which you're really lucky to have. Like your mom just wanted you to be happy and have the most beautiful day. And, you know, it wasn't like a carte blanche thing, but it was more like, you know, we're putting this whole thing together because I know this is your vision and we love you and we want to see you have the most beautiful day ever. And I think that was really beautiful too, because that is not always what happens.
Well, yeah, that's one thing. That's something I wanted to ask you about because you've been doing this for a while.
Yeah, almost 20 years, about 20 years.
That's insane.
Yeah, yeah. I started very young.
So you have seen weddings happen.
Oh my God,
where I'm sure you've later heard that they did not stay together.
Yes.
Can you pinpoint any of those situations and think back to the day and be like, yeah, I kind of saw this coming?
Definitely. I think, you know, a lot of times I notice they're either conforming and they're kind of giving in to themselves or the family or their in-laws or their husband, where they're not being authentically themselves. And you can see it in their energy, things they say, comments they'll make, like, oh, well, he wanted this. Mm-hmm. You know, when you say he, it's either control or direction, or you're being submissive to someone else's wants and needs, right? And you're not seeing so much we wanted to do this. Mm-hmm. Like we talked about it, you know, and seeing different ebbs and flows with people that, well, I hope when like we get married, things will be better or different.
Yeah.
I see a lot of that. And I'm just like, yeah, if he's an alcoholic now, he's going to be an alcoholic then. Like if
nothing's changing from tonight to tomorrow.
Right. If he's partying till 2 a.m. and like you're hoping that just because you get married, like all of a sudden he's going to want to stay home with you on the couch and Netflix and chill. Like, sorry, girl, but that's not happening. Yeah. You know, I've even seen situations like where from a bridesmaid's perspective has been really interesting, where bridesmaids have either bowed out or like take themselves out of the running because they know the relationship is not, you know, what it's meant to be, and they can't like put their stamp of approval on their friend's relationship. I had one person who I did makeup for like the friends that were going to this wedding, and one of the bride happened to cheat on the fiance at the bachelorette in front of like everyone, and it was not like on the DL at all, like full-fledged in the middle of a pool in wherever they were, like at a foam party or whatever. Yeah.
I can't listen to this.
Yeah. And like full-fledged was just like whatever, and expected all the friends to just like eat it, come home and act like nothing happened. And one of them couldn't do it. And she was just like, yeah, I feel like I'm going to get drunk and say something at the wedding, or I'm going to like.
You were doing the girls separate. Like the bride wasn't
she wasn't
room.
there.
Oh my God.
Yeah. They were just friends of hers because I had done their weddings.
Yeah.
And so they asked me to do their makeup that day. I've seen like, you know, so there's just like crazy stuff, or a bride that, you know, her husband went, we'll say, like bounced 2 weeks before the wedding and was just like, I don't want to do this. And family pressured them to continue with their plans and go through with the wedding. And 3 weeks after the wedding, bounced again.
Oh my
And,
God.
so I think like, when you're forcing someone to want the same things as you, like, it's not good. You can't force someone to love you, right? That has to be something authentic, because life is going to throw you a lot of curveballs, and, you have to have some foundation with each other. And I think when people put pressure on someone to be either what they want them to be or be the couple they want them to be, like, I think what I loved about my wedding too was, it was very authentically us. Like, we didn't fall into the pressure of what traditions were in certain aspects or what everyone else did. And trends, what our families wanted. If you can't stand up to your parents before you're getting married, like, that gives me pause a little bit sometimes. When you can't say to your parents, hey, I don't know 40 of these people on the list, I want nothing to do with them at my wedding, like, and you're just like, well, they're paying for it, so I just have to suck it up. But what is that teaching you? Like, what happens if your husband's making more money than you? Like, do you have to suck it up then too? Because he's paying the majority of the bills or the mortgage or whatever, that now, because of that, he has to now, that's the precedence you're setting, that now he makes decisions and controls your lives because he makes more. Like, why is that? Why are we accepting that as okay? Like, you're grown women. If you don't want 20 people at your wedding because you have no idea who they are and you've never met them, and it's your parents' friends, and you want a more intimate wedding, like, why can't you say to your parents, like, authentically, this is not what I want? And I see that a lot too, where, people have weddings that are nothing like what they wanted.
Right.
They wanted like a small backyard wedding or like a dinner of 40 people, and they have a 250 person wedding, and they're like literally having an anxiety attack on their wedding day because they can't say no to their parents.
Yeah. And this, I think, also goes way back to long before you're even engaged and getting married. I think even, let's say it's like your significant other wants you to meet their friends, and you would feel a lot more comfortable going out with like a few friends at a time, and they want to have all 25 of their frat brothers over to your apartment to meet you, and that's not comfortable for you. Like, I think it.
And how do they respond to that?
Exactly.
Like, that is so important. Like, how does your spouse respond to your anxieties or your, boundaries? Like, boundaries is such a huge thing in relationships, and it really starts with wedding planning. Like, that's another like red flag for me, is if your fiance cannot say to his mom or father-in-law or whatever, whoever it is, no, or like, this is not okay for her, or we don't want this, and have your back, that's a problem. You're not going to get that. And I see it again where even friends that have gotten married, that then now they're married and they think, okay, well, now I'm going to be his wife, so he's going to have my back now. And guess what? He doesn't.
Yeah.
He's still letting mom rule the relationship. And guess what? That sucks.
Yeah, you have to become a we long before.
Yes, you really do. And
official.
you have to be with someone that respects boundaries in all respects, not just like with each other, but also like your surroundings and your friendships and other relationships in your life and other dynamics. You want someone that means something to them to respect your boundaries. Like, that should be important to the person you're going to be with for the rest of your life. I mean, come on. Yeah. That's like basic, I feel like, at this point.
100%. And I know, at least for me, I was in so many situations where I was not being respected at all. And what I wanted and what would make me feel comfortable and safe and secure didn't matter.
Right.
But I still was like, well, I know they have the potential to get there.
Right. And you made compromises for
all
yourself.
The time. And excuses. I made excuses
so many
for
excuses.
their behavior.
Yes. Excuses is a big thing. And then you're like, oh, but this and this and this. And then you get older and you realize, no, that's like total BS. Am I allowed to curse?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's total bullshit. You know, like, your person should respect your boundaries. And, if you have anxiety about this situation, like, some of the most beautiful relationships I see with weddings is like that person being like, no, my wife, like, she doesn't like that, or she likes this, and I want to respect that. Yeah. And I think that's really, really important because, life is hard, and especially when going through, like, now having gone through like postpartum and having a baby and all this stuff, and realizing even more so, knowing what your boundaries are when you have a child and all that, and I was unfortunate where I had a very rocky relationship with my mother-in-law before our wedding. We both did. And we have actually gone no contact since our wedding because it was like a whole blow up situation that was really sad and horrible. And, you know, one of the big things, and when we postponed the wedding a full year, we actually spent more time on those boundaries, because I had gotten to a point where I was like, if he doesn't respect my boundaries with her, then I don't know how this will work, because I know myself, and I'm not going to spend the rest of my life fighting with my husband over how I'm disrespected. Yeah. Like, that's just not going to happen. And, you know, we got to a great place with it. And then, you know, once we became a united front, she found that very difficult. And, you know, and then at the wedding, when she felt her, I guess, loss of control and a million other things, and she's got a lot of stuff, you know, but knowing that he had my back and I had his was really important, because guess what? We have a child together. You know, our boundaries with our son, and especially now that we have our son, you know, even more so does he think to himself, you know, I would never allow her to treat him like that. I would never allow this. And so even more so, it's validated of what those boundaries are for us. And, you know, we're on a united front together, and I'm really grateful for that, because that changed everything, you know, and I don't think I would have been able to go through with it if he didn't respect those boundaries.
Yeah, you really need your partner to be exactly that, a partner.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't think we always give ourselves enough confidence to say that that's a non-negotiable, right? You know, because then again, like, it's needy or it's this or it's that, and it's not. You know, like, if your mother-in-law is being rude to you and flat out disrespectful, guess what? That's not okay. Yeah. Just because you're the daughter-in-law, just because she's older, like, that's not okay. Toxic relationships should not be okay. And your husband or fiance should not want someone to treat you that way and invalidate. Like, and I hear it a lot where they're like, oh, well, he just says my mom's just like that, or, oh, she doesn't mean it, or, oh, this. Like, no, bro, your mom means every freaking word that she's saying. Trust me when I tell you, she is doing that all on purpose, because then I get the mother-in-laws in my chair, and trust me, I see it.
They know what they're doing.
They know what they're doing. And I wish enough, you know, girls felt okay saying that, you know, like, that this is the standard for how I should be treated.
Yeah. And sometimes it's not even with family. It could be your significant other's friend.
Oh my God, yes.
From the start.
Yes.
We've all, I think, been in or seen friends go through situations where they meet somebody new and they meet the friends and they just they feel uncomfortable around somebody.
For sure.
And there's a reason.
Yeah. I had that with one of my husband's friend, and we actually argued about it before our wedding. He really wanted him in the wedding party, and I was like, I really don't think this is a good idea. Lo and behold, he ended up, of course, bowing out the week of the wedding, didn't even come to our wedding. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Because he had issues with alcohol, and he backed out. And I knew it. He was the party. He's Stifler, you know, to the extreme, this extreme party frat boy guy. And I was totally this is not who I want in our wedding. I was saying to my husband, I was like, all right, picture this. We're married with kids. Is he coming over and hang out? You know, is he coming in the backyard and playing with our son? No, he's not. And of course, the week of our wedding, he was like, bro, I can't come. It's not a good idea for me. Da-da-da-da-da. So we were one person short in our bridal party, and
that's okay.
And that's okay.
That is A-okay.
And guess what? They don't talk anymore. So
and that's okay too.
Yeah. So it definitely, again, all got validated. And so I definitely think it's important to you know, when people second guess their voice, finding their voice is really important in your relationship. You have to be able to say, and I know you're like this too, you have to be able to say whatever's on your mind, and be carte blanche. It's just whatever. You know, my husband may not like everything I have to say, but I never feel like I have to conceal who I am around him. I'm always 100% authentically myself.
Agreed.
And that's huge.
Yeah. I can't imagine not saying what's on my mind.
Exactly.
Yeah. So long before you met your husband.
Yep.
You became single at 31.
Yep.
You got out of a very long relationship.
Yep. I
want to talk about that and hear more about that, because I know for a lot of people, when they spend so much time of a certain part of their lives, that's for example, when you spend years of your 20s in a relationship with somebody, you're getting to this big milestone of 30, which seems really scary. It can be terrifying to say this isn't right.
Right.
So I would love to hear why that relationship ended and what it felt like to in a way, start over, or if that's how you felt at 31.
Yeah, I definitely, so he was 10 years older than me. We had known each other since I was younger. He owned a restaurant near where we grew up, and we always went there like as a family and stuff. So I'd known him a long time. He had been married. We got together after that, and we were together for 10 years, and
that is crazy. I'm sorry, hold on. You were 21, dating a 31-year-old divorcee.
Yep. I know, crazy.
What?
Yeah. What? They had no kids, so in my mind, I was like, all right, I come from, like my older brother and sister are technically half, so I had said to myself, like, once I started, like, kind of, in life, I was like, listen, like, maybe I meet someone and they already were married or something. Yeah. I don't know. Like my family was a modern family. Like I'm not unopposed to it as long as there's no like baggage. No,
I completely agree.
Totally. And so it was kind of like this organic thing. Like we had a really close friendship for a very long time, and he was someone I really trusted, and someone like we had this very deep like emotional connection. Like our emotional intelligence was very simpatico. And we had the type of relationship where we could like look at each other and know what each other's thinking. Like I didn't have to explain myself emotionally. And that was something that was very deep and very easy. But of course, when there's easy, there's also hard. And, he struggled with a lot of his own demons and was a very high functioning alcoholic at most of the time in our relationship. And I was always trying to hope that this roller coaster ride would be the last one. And I kept on going back for more because I was so in love with him and because nothing else was wrong with our relationship, right? So it made it so hard because the hardest part was something that, if you want to go into that sphere, like he couldn't help it. It was a disease, right? So how do you leave someone with cancer that you love? Like, no. So, I tried as long as I could. And then I got to a point where I was just like, I don't think I'm getting what I want from this relationship anymore. I don't think we're growing. We're kind of stagnant. And, we both knew it was time to end things, but even though we didn't want to, neither one of us did. It was like a very like sad, but hard, but easy breakup in a sense. Like there wasn't drama. It wasn't like a hate you this or that thing. It was so like, we hate to say goodbye, but it was time to say goodbye. Yeah. And, and we did that. And, I realized a lot from that relationship, like so much of what I wanted, what I didn't want. And also, I felt very loved for most of it. And I think that was also hard because it wasn't about not being loved. Like we still left the relationship loving each other. We do keep in touch every now and then, like not, on phone calls or whatever, but, like see each other on social media and stuff. And he's doing great and with someone and he's very happy and he knows I'm happy and, and all those things. And, a big part of his demon was he didn't want to pass on all his stuff to a child. And I definitely wanted kids. And so we just kind of got to a place where I was like, I want more for myself and I'm not going to get it here anymore, as sad as that is, but I know it's time to say goodbye.
That's so painful.
That was definitely the hardest ending of a relationship, I would say, in terms of like getting over it. That one was hard to get over.
Yeah, well, there's so much love. There's so much history. There's so much. Could it have been more? Right. But at the end of the day, you knew that your paths were only going to go in different directions even more.
Yeah. And I knew that, he, as much as he wanted to, he wasn't going to be able to give me what I needed or wanted long term. Yeah. And I think, and as much as it pained both of us, it just wasn't going to work. Yeah. And so we had to move on. And, the sad part too is I loved his family. His mom was the best. If I could trade her for my current mother-in-law, I would. But, like we had our lives were very intertwined. We had a condo together and, we went through a lot of life moments together. But I think the bigger piece of that too was at that time, my sister got diagnosed with breast cancer and I just looked at my life and was like, I'm not happy and I know I need to go. And seeing her sick and going through what she was going through kind of motivated me to say it's time. And having that moment of like, life is short. You don't know what's going to happen. Are you actually looking up and getting up today and saying, I'm happy with where my life's at and this is what I want? And I realized I couldn't say that anymore. And so when she got sick, that motivated me to say, I'm out, you know, and this is enough. Wow. So, yeah.
You know, you and I have talked about this off the microphone, but you never know what someone's been through.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, you have to give yourself grace as well as others, you know, because you don't know what other people have been through and you don't know what else is going on. And I think that, you know, I even see brides today that, you know, like their parent is dying or they lost a parent, or even themselves. I, you know, recently did a wedding where she, you know, had breast cancer and she had to get a mastectomy before the wedding. And, you know, I think it's important to look at things and realize, like, you can't wait for things to change, you know? And that was like a big wake up call for me, is because, and I'd spent a lot of time in therapy and I had a great therapist who I still talk to today that, you know, helped me realize like, it's not changing. Mm-hmm. And I have to let go. And I had to get to that place where I was ready. But, you know, again, my mom is really wise. So she would one time said to me, she was kind of like, I know this isn't for you. And when you're ready, you'll let go. And I think that's sometimes also okay to say to friends that are in unhealthy relationships. And I've said that to friends, like, I know you love this person, but I also know this person isn't right for you. And I know you're not ready to walk away. And one day when you will be, and I will be there. And I think that's also a really nice thing to say to friends, because, you know, sometimes friends are in shitty relationships and we have to watch it, and we watch them go back and forth, or we watch them be with someone that treats them like shit, or we watch them be with someone that, you know, is just like not the right person for them. And you hear them complain and it's up and down and you're on the ride with them and you're like, I just want to get off this freaking ride. I just want to get off.
I don't have the stop button. They do.
Right. And I think sometimes it's good to say to them, like, as a safe place, like, listen, he is not right for you. And that's okay that you're not ready to walk away from this relationship because you don't feel like it's done, or you're not done trying or whatever. But once you are, I'm here. And for now, like, I'm here. But I know this isn't it. And I'm not going to pressure you to break up with him, because I think that's a lot of things, like, sometimes we'll do to friends is be like, you need to break up with him. You need to break up with him. And you know what? Then they stop calling you or telling you what's going on because they're not ready. And that's okay to not be ready. We've all been there where we're not ready to say goodbye to someone, but we know it's not right deep down.
100%.
But we're not there.
I think that's a really, really good example of what you can say to a friend. And I get this question all the time.
Yeah.
Like, my friend's in a horrible relationship.
Yep.
I like can't stand to watch her in it. But like, what do I tell her? Do I not? What do I do? And I think you're right. It's completely okay to say, like, listen, like, you do deserve more.
Right.
It's okay if you're not
it's
ready
not a judgment.
To ask for more yet. But the key is what you said, like, I will be here for you when it happens.
Right. And I think, like, people need to know they're not being judged for going through this journey of this relationship, because, again, some people are ready quicker. Like, as I got older, and I'm sure other people feel the same way, like, when you start feeling like the ick factor of like, this isn't right, it gets shorter and shorter of when you're ready to be like, I'm out. Like, this is, I'm done trying. Like, this isn't going anywhere. And, you know, the older you get, the more you're like quicker to kind of come to that realization and not be like, but let me keep trying and let me see if it changes. And, but it has so much potential if he would just do blah, 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 you know, and we all do that. So
that we do. Do you, or did you ever feel like anyone, once you started dating again, was judging you for having just gotten out of a 10-year-long relationship?
Definitely.
Because I always get questions, and I've had friends ask me this too, of like, I met this guy, we went on a first date, like, it was really great, but he like got out of a 6-year relationship like 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Is that a red flag?
Yeah. So I think some guys thought it was like kind of like a blessing and a curse. Like, some guys were like, oh, wow, okay, so like she's ready to be committed and she's ready to like, why, and or also, why didn't he want to marry her? You know, like, and that was such a sexist fucking thing too, because it was like, well, what's wrong with her that after 10 years he wouldn't marry her? And, you know, then when I explained this situation, because I was always very open, and I think that's important too, is how you talk about the relationship, right? So I'm not talking about the relationship like I'm still recovering from it. it. I'm talking about the relationship that I've processed it, I've accepted it, I've learned from it, and I've moved forward from it. And I think that was like a big key on how other people interpreted where I was at post breakup, because when I first started dating people, I knew I wasn't ready. And then when I ended up dating this one guy who was a really nice guy, just not the guy for me. We're still friendly-ish, you know, like if I see him around because we're family friends. But, you know, he understood the background of the relationship, and he, you know, understood that I was like ready to move forward and why I left the relationship, and he didn't judge me for it. And I think that's another thing. Like if someone's going to judge you for your past, like if I went through like a little camera roll of my exes, you know, like all the exes of like guys I dated, I'm sure it wasn't freaking, you know, an amazing movie. So let's not judge everyone. Yeah, right, exactly. So if someone was going to be that petty and judge me for that so easily, then they weren't the right guy for me. But I think a big part of how you, like, you know, if you go on a date and you're talking about your ex so much like they're like on a pedestal, then yeah, you're not ready for a date, you know, and the person's going to feel that. But if you talk about it in a way that is, you know, authentic, and as I said, like you've processed it, you're ready to move forward. And then there were also guys that I would judge them because they hadn't been in long-term relationships. Like you're 30 and you've only dated someone for 6 months is the longest relationship. I'm judging you, mofo, you know, because what's wrong with you that you can't last with someone longer than 6 months? So I guess it goes both ways in a sense.
Yeah, and I think in both ways, it's exactly what you said. It's how you talk about it. Like when I met Jake, he had never been in a serious relationship before. But he said he had reasons. He was traveling for work. He like lived in another state for a year and knew it was temporary. And he was ready for a relationship. That's what was important, that he wanted one. Right. And so I think exactly that. Like if you're talking about your ex and, you know, saying like my ex was crazy and all these things that they like did me wrong, like, okay, maybe you're not over it. Right. But if someone's like, yeah, you know, I was in a 6-year, 4-year, 2-year, 10-year relationship, and there was a lot of love there, and we ultimately decided we wanted different things. Okay. They decided they wanted different things, and now they're here trying to find that different thing, and maybe it's you.
And there's no drama, and like, so what's the big deal? Like, why, you know, but one thing that was interesting is I definitely got judged by a lot of guys for being independent more than being in a 10-year relationship.
Weird.
Yeah. Like, I had been on my own since I was 18. Like, I'll never forget, I went out with this one guy, and he you know, kept talking about how I was so dominant. And I was like, what are you talking about? Because like I have my own business and I have my own job. And because at the time I was also had my side business, and then I worked like a, you know, regular job too. And, you know, so I was very independent. I was a hustler. I lived on my own. I didn't have a roommate. And he like kept on being like, you're dominant, you're dominant. And then the icing on the cake of this date was that he forgot his wallet, and I ended up paying for dinner. And then he called me like a half an hour when I was like, I cannot believe this dude kept talking about how independent I was, and he's used to more submissive women, and he doesn't even have his wallet. Was this
someone who forgot his wallet, or who said he was waiting for his check from work to come in?
Oh my God.
That was I'm linking her 2015 to 2017 dating blog in the show notes. You have to read through it.
It is so funny, like the amount of excuses. So then he called me and he was like, and in my head, I'm kind of like, okay, there's Venmo, there's Zelle, like get out of here. Like you're lying. And that you left and he worked in a hospital too. So like, obviously like you need cards and IDs. So like, I just didn't buy any of what he was selling. And then he was like, called me and was like, well, I would be open to like dealing with your dominant self if like blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, I'm good, bro. Have a nice day.
Do you think it's that he or men in general that you dated were intimidated by your independence, or that they weren't used to it?
I think it's a little bit of both. I always had, I don't want to say issues or challenges. I don't know like the right word, but I guess I could say pushback for being really independent and knowing what I wanted. And I think that was probably why I was in a relationship with someone older for a long time, because he wasn't intimidated by who I was like that. And I just, you know, I have a personality where I know what I want and I go after it. I'm an Aries. I'm a fire sign, like true and true. I'm half Israeli. Like, you know, like if I want something, I'm going to get it. You're not going to convince me otherwise. Like it's happening. And so then I think like, you know, I felt like people gave me pushback because I was smart. I was pretty. Like, being smart and pretty is hard. Like, I hate to be that person to say it, but, you know, when you are confident and you're smart and you're independent and pretty, because I didn't need anything from a guy, right?
Right.
I wanted a relationship, but I didn't need to be in a relationship. And I think some guys really didn't like that. They really wanted someone that was like needier than I was. And I think that bothered a lot of guys that I went on dates with, but it was clearly not the right person for me.
Exactly.
So, in a way it was a filter for, you know, like the bad ones, but it also was kind of like sad that so many guys were so intimidated by me being confident and like sure of who I was and being like, why is that a bad thing?
Yeah. I'm glad that you didn't let that dim your light.
No, because fuck that. You know, I worked really hard to have that light. Like, you know, I definitely went through challenges in like middle school and high school where girls were mean to me and, you know, bullied me and did all these things that made me doubt myself. But as I got older, I was like, no, that's, you know, no,
Exactly.
No one's going to do that to me.
100%.
You know, guys, girls, coworkers, bosses. Like, I mean, I feel like as women, you get that in so many aspects of your life from we're little, you know, like it starts off in like elementary school and then you're like still fighting for that person that's not going to like be intimidated by you knowing what you want to like in work and life and friendships too. You know, how many times have we all gone through friends that like got a little jealous or got a little like, you know, threatened by us like being confident and like going after what we wanted, you know, and that sucks too.
Yeah, it's not a good feeling.
No.
You're starting a podcast.
Yes.
Which, as I say that, everyone is probably like, yes. Because this has been so amazing. Tell me about it.
So I just had always loved hearing people's stories. And I think a lot of from what I do, so this kind of inspired it. Like, you know, when I'm doing someone's makeup, it's an intimate, you know, service, and people tell me a lot about their life, or, you know, and I ask a lot about people's life. And, you know, I always would get these amazing stories of people who have survived things or gone through things that I just thought were beautiful stories that should be shared. And there's not enough storytelling of people that are just regular people going through life's up and downs and successes and triumphs and tragedies. And, you know, we hear celebrities going through postpartum, and like, guess what? That would be amazing, Kourtney Kardashian, if I could have taken off, you know, 40 days and not left my house and, you know, postpartum. Like, she's so lucky she got to do that, and kudos for her. But guess what? I work for myself, and I had to go back 10 days after I had my baby to work because I don't get paid if I don't work. And we weren't in a place where we could afford to have just one income and for months at a time. And, you know, it's sucks, but at the end of the day, I think like it's important for real people to hear real authentic stories. And there's a lot of things that interest me that I want to talk about, whether it's domestic violence or, you know, mental health, you know, entrepreneurship, women in business, so many different things, and how people get to where they are, because I think the journey is so important in life. And I think we talk so much about the result, right? Like, oh, well, now I look amazing because I did this. Okay, let's talk about like how you got there. You know, what was the struggle before you got, like, no one's just bouncing, like putting a check of like $1 million to start your business and saying, go for it, you know, carte blanche, like, here, I'm investing in you. Like, that doesn't happen to everyday people, you know, like, same with you. Like, you started doing what you're doing and built now this huge, amazing little mini empire, and it's going to keep growing. But how, you know, I'm sure day 1 isn't what day 100 is and day 300 is. And I think that journey is so important for people to hear, because we are such a clickbait like society where we focus on like the highlight reel. But I want to hear about the journey. I want to hear the story of how it happened.
I love that so much. And I know I'm so passionate about hearing stories like that and helping to share them too, because with that, where most of us are now is not where we expected to be.
Absolutely.
And is not where we set out to be. And something happened along the way that steered us in that direction that was more right for us. And I think that's always so interesting to learn. And a lot of it comes from the challenges that we faced.
Absolutely.
And they made us who we are. They made us stronger, and they made us have this purpose or passion for helping people in some way or for living a certain type of life that we couldn't live before. And so I think that's so beautiful that you're on this mission to help share those stories?
Because I think at the end of the day too, like, and same thing with relationships, jobs, friendships, you know, everything's temporary, right? Like, we have the power to change it. Nothing has to define us. And I think, you know, to a lot of people I've seen that, you know, whether it's friends or people I know that have gone through these crazy journeys in their life, and when they're over the hump, they're focused on the journey, right? They can't let go of it. They're the victim. They can't move forward. They can't move on. And then you have other people that do all these amazing things with their journey, and they survive, they thrive, they build, they create from those journeys. Like a great friend of mine, you know, during COVID, she had lost her mom, who was always into art, and that was something they always shared. And she started painting, and now she's selling pieces for like thousands of dollars. Wow. And she's this amazing artist locally, and, you know, going, you know, nationally now too. Incredible. And it's really cool. But she started at 40, like who starts like figuring that out? And, you know, or how many people, like, you know, Bobby Brown started her business, I think at 40, and all these other amazing people. But like in our minds, like we think like, oh, she just like woke up and built this empire. No, like it was a struggle. Like it doesn't start off that easy. And I think, you know, we're so used to hearing like the easy things that we forget about the hard stuff. And the hard stuff, just because something's hard doesn't mean it's bad, you know?
Yeah. And I feel like right now we're in a society that glorifies like not necessarily instant gratification, which of course it does, but like Forbes 30 under 30. It's like how quickly can you make your mark, leave your legacy, build your empire, and
then retire at 5 years old. Like,
exactly. And not to say that there's anything wrong with that. Like, it's incredible for people who have done
but
all
there's
that,
a small percentage of people that are going to be able to accomplish that. Right.
The tiniest.
But then let's all talk about the people that do all these other amazing things later or different or it's harder. And I want to hear those stories, because those stories are the masses, right? You know, those are the people that can relate. You know, seeing people like, you know, I have one of my best friends who's, you know, has a big presence online, and, you know, I've known her since we were 6 years old, and I've seen all the tragedy and the journey that she's gone on, and, you know, and seeing her come out the other side of it. She's a single gay mom raising 2 kids that she had through IVF, and, you know, and she's doing amazing considering what she's been through. And there aren't enough stories of those things where, you know, we share enough. And just listening to a celebrity or an influencer on a couch, you know, talk about how hard it is, you know, it's different. It's just reads differently than a real everyday person that they're just going to have this conversation to have it and to share their story and not for any other reason. And I think that'll be really fun. And I thought of calling it, and this is where we ended up coming up with the name, is The Beauty in the Gray, because I think that there is a lot of beautifulness in the gray areas of life. And I think we focus so much on the color, but there is a lot of beauty in the gray as well.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. And I will be sharing it and blasting it everywhere when it is out.
Thank you.
Where can everybody find you if they want to follow along on your journey? B, book you for a wedding, for an event, for anything? Guys, obviously I recommend the living shit out of Essie Cohen makeup. So please, you sir.
So my Instagram is Essie Cohen Makeup, and my website's essiecohen.com. I will be posting stuff and start sharing and building an audience for my podcast at some point. Postpartum mom life and working mom is hard, so I'm doing everything slowly but surely.
Superwoman.
Yeah, but you know, I think it's like also like kind of cool to like remember like Rome wasn't built in a day, and it's okay to like slowly get there and build your pieces, and you know, and not put the pressure. Like at least you're doing it, right?
Exactly. And there's no rush.
Right, exactly. I got a lot of life in me, so I got a lot to do.
I love it. I love it. Essie, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
For
this was so much fun.
Oh my God, guys. I'm still coming back. My brain is still turning back to a brain from mush. I can't end this episode without asking the question that I ask at the end of every single episode. What was I thinking? What is the best piece of dating or relationship advice you have ever received or have to give?
Ooh, I mean, I talked about a couple, but another great one that one of my clients had told me that I really, really loved is, Essie, everyone has shit. Everyone has baggage, right? But you gotta find the guy with an overnight bag and not a fucking suitcase. And I really love that, because I was like, I get it. You know, you don't want to be with someone that's weighing you down with their stuff and weighing themselves down. But it's okay to have stuff. Everyone's got stuff, and you got to find the right person that you love their stuff and they love your stuff. So I think that was like one of my favorite pieces of advice.
I love that.
And especially if you were a former fixer like me, where you like
Fixers
to fix
Anonymous.
people. Yeah, Fixers Anonymous. Hi, I'm Essie. So I think that was So that was a great piece of advice that I really loved, because it definitely was true to form, where I was like, okay, you're right. I don't need to like take their garbage dump truck of shit, and finding someone that has shit, but it's like they've dealt with their shit. Yep. And it's an overnight bag.
I love it.
So all for overnight bags.
Overnight bags. Bonus points if it's a cute overnight bag.
Definitely cute. It has to be cute.
Yes. I love my Dag Needs Over overnight duffel. If they have one of those, they're in.
Absolutely.
I love it. Essie, thank you so much for being here.
It was such a pleasure.
Yeah.